For more on this, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, who represents Washington State's 7th Congressional District, joins us now to discuss. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. You've been a vocal critic since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade on Friday. You're now proposing a national women's strike. How would that work exactly, and what would it achieve in the short term for the women who need these services?
Well, Errol, it's good to be with you. The main thing, I think is really important is we have to keep up the heat in the streets. We have to keep up the momentum to make it clear to Republicans across the country who are running in states and also Republicans in Congress who have refused to vote to codify Roe v. Wade and actually spent decades installing a Republican-controlled radical extremist Supreme Court. So a national strike is just an idea at this moment. We are doing some of the initial conversations to see if this could become a reality. But I take the lesson from Iceland in 1975 when 90% of women across Iceland went on strike in their homes and in their businesses, and they were protesting the unequal treatment of women. And what happened is the country came to a complete halt, because what we have to understand is that women's reproductive rights and freedom, the choice to make decisions about our own body, is deeply tied to the economic future of any country. And so by calling for a strike, if we're able to do that, I think it really showcases the reality of how we need women in the workplace and how bans on abortion are going to stop pregnant people across this country from being able to engage in economic activity.
That's interesting, the Iceland approach. I guess the point I would make is that's a country of, what, 360,000 people versus the United States, more than 320 million. It's a different beast here. But I want to also point you to this. We've had polling recently showing 2/3 of Americans supported keeping Roe v. Wade. That the sentiment of the country seems to be for protecting these rights. As chair of the Progressive Caucus, though, what conversations are you having with the White House about what specifically can be done now? There seems to be frustration among many Democrats online and in person about the fact that they may have Congress, they may have the White House, but it doesn't seem to make a difference when it comes to this issue. So how do you convince them something can be done?
Well, let me say the frustration is with the Republicans for refusing to vote to codify the Women's Health Protection Act, which Democrats in the House have passed. We have a simple majority in the House. We were able to pass that. In the Senate, as you know, Errol, there is the filibuster, which essentially gives power to 40% of senators to block a bill from even being debated on the floor of the Senate, much less being passed. And we need, let's be really frank, we need a couple of more pro-choice Democrats who could vote to essentially carve out or overturn the filibuster in order to pass critical civil rights legislation like the Women's Health Protection Act. And so that is why it is complicated for the White House. Their hands are somewhat tied with the Hyde Amendment, which prevents essentially federal funds from being used for abortion. And I think what the White House is starting to propose, and I'm glad that Secretary Becerra came out with a series of actions today. We have a couple more that we're going to put together and send to the White House. But this is the beginning. Let's make sure medication abortion is available to people. Let's make sure that we are not, the Department of Justice does not participate in criminalizing women who cross state lines to get abortion care. There are all kinds of places where the White House can apply the pressure of agencies to also make sure that pregnant people across this country, families, are receiving information on the range of reproductive health services that they need, including abortion, even if abortions can't be performed with federal funds. So there are a number of things that we think the administration is beginning to lay out. I think, the frustration is obviously people would have wanted to see it 48 hours ago, 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago. And also, I think there's an opportunity for the president to be very vocal about this issue, bring women who have had abortions and the complexity of their situations into the White House, do a national town hall on this issue, make it clear that we are not going back and we are going to take on this radical extremist Supreme Court.
What's remarkable to me, speaking to you as someone who supports abortion rights and you want women to have access to this, is what you're not saying. You're not saying any change is coming anytime soon. You're not saying that this will be easy. In fact, the solutions that you just point to require a whole long and sustained effort to elect people that would support carving this out once elected. And so I wonder what you say now to a young woman, let's say in Mississippi, in the South, in a place where abortions are illegal, perhaps women of color who are more susceptible to suffer from the inability to travel to get these services. What do you say to those young women who today are full of fear, concern, and worry because they cannot take care of their own health?
Well, one of the things we haven't talked about, Errol, is that there are states like mine, Washington State, where abortion is legal. And one of the things that we are doing is states where abortion is legal, we are getting together. In fact, the governor has announced the governor of my state has announced a coalition with Washington, Oregon, and California. We're all working to figure out how we can expand our access to include women from other states, whether it's Mississippi, Idaho, wherever it is, Nebraska, states that are banning abortion now. So there is work happening right at this moment to try to expand the capacity that we have in states where it is legal to be able to help other women in other states. But you're right. And let me tell you, as a longtime organizer for civil, human, immigrant rights, what I know is that these fights are not quick. And the Republican attempt to essentially take over the Supreme Court, and it's now a Supreme Court that I think has very little legitimacy anymore because it is so wildly out of step with the American people, is something that has been going on for 30 years. So what we need to do, we can make a difference in November by very clearly electing 2 more pro-choice Democrats and overturning or carving out the filibuster right after November to codify this into law. Separate from that, we do have a broken system in the Senate. I have called for, and the Progressive Caucus has been adamant about the need to eliminate the filibuster because, Errol, what's happened is in the vacuum of Congress not acting, whether it's on gun violence, whether it's on abortion, whether it's on, any number of things, the Equality Act, so many things. In the absence of Congress not acting, the Supreme Court, now radicalized, now extremist Republican-controlled Supreme Court, is acting to take away rights that have been the law of the land for over half a century. That is unprecedented. Don't let anybody tell you that Plessy v. Ferguson was the same thing and that there has been precedent for overturning. That was not the same thing. Plessy did not confer or take away a constitutional right in the way that Roe did. And now, after 50 years, this is unprecedented. So yes, This is not a quick fight. And what I would say to that woman in Mississippi is that we will do everything we can to help you now. And we need people in the streets. We need to elect people who will change these broken systems. And remember, every civil rights struggle in the history of our country or our world has not been accomplished quickly. We will have to do what it takes to make sure that we actually have the power in our houses and fix our broken election system.
It's a sobering discussion on the enormity of the challenge ahead for you. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, thank you for joining CBS News today.
Thank you, Errol.